Well, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Vanishing. Thank you to all the people who've subscribed to the channel over the last couple of months. I really appreciate it. And I'll continue to keep posting the content, not as often as I would like because it's very difficult to find the time, but I'll certainly do my very best. If there's any stories breaking, you'll be the first to hear about them here on Beyond the Vanishing. So what the channel does is we look at missing persons, people who've gone missing, and we try to find some hope for the victim and the victim's families. But we also look at murders that have happened and homicides that are in the news, particularly ones that catch your eye. And last Wednesday, in Maguire's Bridge, on Wednesday morning, there was a family murdered by a family member. We don't know the full circumstances of it, but the man who did it was a guy called Ian Rutledge, and he killed a lady called Vanessa White and her children, James and Sarah, and he shot them all. And apparently harrowing scenes when the police, the PSNI of Northern Ireland, police service there, attended the scene. So you can just imagine they're probably going to be affected as well by that, and they'll need counselling because, part of your job as a policeman or policewoman is going out sometimes doing traffic stops or giving out tickets for speeding, and then sometimes you're called to a situation like that and you don't know what you're entering. You come into the home and you're probably praying that you don't find children, and in fact that's what happened last week, and it's terrible. Funeral arrangements for Miss White and her two children were announced in a social media post today, so that's going to happen on Saturday, and people have been asked to attend the church to wear bright colours. People have been asked to make donations to Women's Aid. Women's Aid posted soon after it happened last week that there have been a huge increase in femicide here, where sometimes it's a domestic crime where the husband or ex-partner decides to kill his wife or ex-wife and the children. It does happen. And we saw with Alan Haw doing it to Clodagh Haw and their children in Cavan many years ago. I don't think anyone will ever forget that. And he took his own life. In those situations, and when there's funeral arrangements and things like that, when something like that has happened, right, and an ex-partner or a husband, ex-husband murders his whole family, a lot of people are very obviously understandably upset. They're going through bereavement processes, and funeral arrangements have to be organised while that's all going on. And somebody has to remain level-headed in a situation like that. And what I mean by that is, I see today that the children and the mother will be brought to Clare and buried there. There's no mention of the man who killed them, whereas he's going to be buried. But we did see in the Alan Haw case in Clodagh Haw, where his family wanted him buried with his wife and three children, and he just shot them all dead and shot himself. But I wouldn't allow that. And I think a lot of people wouldn't allow it. But you see, while all that's going on, people are so upset that you just go along with these things just to stop the fuss. You don't want to cause a problem. But you've got to put your foot down in that situation. There's not a chance. If that ever happened to me, don't ever have me buried with somebody who's taken me out. Not a chance. Terrible, terrible stuff. No time for that. He should be buried separately. But everyone does it differently. But I wouldn't have it. It wouldn't happen on my watch. That's for sure. And I'm glad to see in this situation that the family have done the right thing here, because you'll always get one member from, oh, he should be buried. He didn't know what he was doing. He was going through a mental health crisis. Doesn't wash anymore. I think if you have mental health problems, go and get it seen to. Go on medication. There's lots of experts out there. Your GP is a point of contact. Go and see that person. But don't take out the kids and take out the ex-wife and stuff like that. If you have a problem, deal with it yourself. And whatever you have to do to yourself, you do it. But don't be doing it to other people and taking them out of this world. That's not right. And we have to put our foot down on that kind of thing. It's just happening too often. And I remember when Alan Haw did what he did to his family in Cavan, he was described in the media, in some media outlets, as a pillar of the community. Pillar of the community, my Barney. He was nowhere near that. And so what if he was a teacher or whatever? Look what he did. It's just terrible. So always remember, in a situation like that, God forbid it ever happens, keep a level head. I don't want to be buried with anyone that did that to me. Thank you very much. But just to say that we don't know the full circumstances in terms of why he did it. But again, Women's Aid referred to, coercion and all that sort of stuff. Not saying in this case it was, but coercive control. And to I have a lot of female viewers, and a lot of them watch this, and it's very important, and it includes men too. But if you're in the early parts of a relationship, if you're dating somebody and they're constantly possessive, or they're wondering where you are, or you won't get the kids, over my dead body, if you hear those kind of things, and where were you? Why weren't you home? Why didn't you answer my call? The 20 missed calls that I gave you, this kind of stuff. No one should be getting 20 missed calls, and no one. If you send a text, wait for a reply. But people who constantly keep texting, they're red flags, and it's usually not a good sign. So I think in that situation, you've got to watch out for those things. No one deserves to get beaten up and stuff like that. I get that, but there are warning signs sometimes, and you got to watch out for those red flags. And once you see them, you got to sort of say, is this really worth it? Maybe I should step away from this so-called relationship, because it's not really good. And once you have kids with them, it's very difficult then, It's very, very difficult, because that person will have rights to seeing the children and stuff like that, and it could get messy. But that is the case with Fermanagh, and it's very, very sad what happened. And if we hear any more updates on it, we will let you know. But the death of the person suspected of shooting Amin Rutledge was announced last night. Now, there's another story that I want to talk to you about, and that is the story of Michael Gaine. Now, you might remember I've been featuring a lot of videos on Michael Gaine. There was a soldier living on his land called Michael Kelly who was arrested but then released without charge. And that's the only arrest we've had in the case. And no one has been charged. There's no one guilty of anything at the moment. People might have their own suspicions, but at the end of the day, as I always say on here, you're innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. And I know detectives went over to Maine to visit Michael Kelly's ex-partner, and she said that he had become very unstable after the 9/11 attacks, a lady called Alicia Snow. And there's court documents, you can get them online, about the custody of the children and stuff like that, and he kind of thought she was a witch or something like that. But again, that's all we know, and he maintains his innocence, and he also says that a criminal gang were trying to set him up and stuff like that. So there's been no updates for about 4 weeks now, nearly into 5 weeks, and there's been nothing from the Gardaí. All we know, there's going to be a review into the Annie McCarrick case and the Michael Gaine case, a review with GSOC. They have a new name now, but they will investigate themselves as to what happened, because there does appear to have been flaws in that case from the very get-go. They had it down as a missing persons, and as we know, Michael Gaine was a fella to go out all night on a bender or go to the casino. He seemed like a family man, and he was. It would be unusual for him not to come home after night. And the family rang up, and said, "Look, he's missing." And then the Gardaí went to the farm, but probably at that stage he may have needed the cadaver dogs, and they might have been able to locate him. And he would have been in one piece, because as we know, he was dismembered and put into a machine and dismembered, and he could have been dismembered that night when Gardaí left that farm. He could have been at the stream. It looks like that's possibly what happened. We don't know, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence or crime scene or anything like that. So whoever did it is very experienced in it, and they're still out and about. This is the thing. So someone who did that to Michael Gaine is walking the streets. Have they left the country? I don't know. There's a lot of things we don't know, but it's just 4 weeks, 5 weeks have passed, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of updates from anywhere. And I'm hoping that, we get some sort of update very soon, because at the moment there just doesn't seem to be anything happening with Michael Gaine, and it's quite disappointing. And I know a lot of people on here are very critical of the Gardaí's performance in that case. Annie McCarrick was 30 years ago, possibly around that time. It's a long time ago. And I wasn't there. I don't know much of the investigation. But the Michael Gaine, there's definitely things were done wrong in the beginning. And I think we can all admit that. But you also have to balance that out. Even though you can be highly critical of that, you have to balance it out with the fact that when you look at the Anastasia Kriegel case, the young 14-year-old girl who was murdered by two young boys, or 13, I think, or at the time, Gardaí handled that case very well. And then there was another case that I read about recently, the architect Graham Dwyer, responsible for murdering Elaine O'Hara. That was great detective work there. So sometimes things like that happen. I think that they need to up their game because criminals are getting more cute and cagey in terms of how they murder someone and how to get away with it. And as I've said before, there's all these TV shows showing you luminol. I wouldn't have known what luminol was many years ago. Now we all know what it is. It's sprayed on a wall or on the carpet to see where the bloodstains are. We shouldn't know that. I don't think we should know that stuff. I think that should be privy to professional detectives and labs, DNA analysis labs that deal with that kind of thing. But this is what the TV has done, and by dismembering a body and getting rid of the body and washing it down, you're washing all the DNA evidence, So that's the Michael Gaine case as things stand. Unfortunately, nothing's happening with it. It's just gone stale. And I'm hoping that there's going to be some breaking news on it very soon. Another story, and we're going to wrap it up then, is the story, the public inquiry that is going to be happening, hopefully. Well, calls are being made for it, into the disappearance of Kairen Durnin. And Kairen Durnan is the schoolboy who would probably have celebrated his 9th birthday recently. He was last seen 3 years ago. Gardaí are continuing to appeal for information. Kyran was around the age of 6 when he's believed to have gone missing, but wasn't reported missing for a long time. And he had been at a school, I think St. Nicholas School in Dundalk, National School, and then he was moved out of there because he had COVID or something like that. But there's no sort of record of him seeing a doctor. Of course, if you have COVID, you could stay at home. You don't have to see a doctor. But then he was moved to a school in Newry, and that's what the National School in St. Nicholas were told. But they didn't do up any follow-up information there. If they had a rang Newry and says, "Oh, you have a student there called Kyran Durnin, don't you?" And they go, "No, we don't know anyone called Kyran Durnin," then St. Nicholas School then could have called the authorities. So there's a breakdown in communication, and there's definitely flaws in how, children, in most schools down here in the south, if your child is missing 20 days in the year, it's a huge investigation into what could be happening. You know what I mean? There's a huge investigation, and they'd be all kind of thinking, where are you? Where are you gone? So it's a bit unusual that they didn't do that up in Dundalk for some reason, because he must have been missing. And then they have receipts from the family of Kyran Durnan where they had takeaways, and you'd have a certain amount of people getting the takeaway. Let's say there was 5 orders, and then a few months later, 4 orders. So Kyran's order clearly wasn't there. And why wasn't it there? Because he was obviously dead at that stage. And who killed him? Where is he? Why was he killed? What was going on in that? And then a person known to the family took his own life. A lot of people thought it was the father. I don't believe it was the father from what I've heard. But he took his own life and left a note or something. I don't know what was in the note. Again, Gardaí will know. But Kyran Durnan missing now 3 years. And a decoy child was brought to meetings with social workers. And one of the social workers was suspicious, thinking, that doesn't look like the Kyran I met a few months ago. And there were people trying to cover it all up. Mother's over in the UK. Grandmother is back in Dundalk or Drogheda or somewhere like that. I don't know. It's just totally bizarre, isn't it? Poor Kyran Durnan, lovely little kid, and being fed takeaways all the time. That's all they seem to be eating, takeaways every night. There were so many orders for takeaways. it's very sad what some children are born into, but none of them deserve to go missing or to be murdered. You know, it's very, very unfortunate situation. But there's no sign of him, and they can't find the body. And again, that was a total disaster. I mean, no child should disappear without a trail. And for the school, St. Nicholas School, not to check with the school in Newry, that's disappointing. And another child gone missing in the state. There's been a lot of children going missing. So I don't know why this is happening, where they're going. Who is is Kairen dead, or is he living abroad somewhere? I don't know. There's nothing to suggest that I mean, we don't know that he's dead. He may not be, you know, but it's a very serious situation. But then we have Michael Gaine. That doesn't seem to be solved at all. Kairen Durnin, another one not solved. But as I did say, you know, Anastasia Kriegel one, the Elaine O'Hara one, they were solved. So there's always hope, and this channel's all about hope. But anyway, thanks. If there's any updates on any of those 3 cases, I certainly will. There was no point me doing one video per each story. I mean, I just, you know, just do them all 3 all together. But if there's any updates, I'll let you know, and I'll be on here to tell you about it. But thanks for subscribing and liking and sharing, and have a great day. This is Johnny from At Beyond the Vanishing. Talk to you soon.